I was programmed to kill. He told me what to do. I was listening to God. And then she arrived. She was the first. And there would be a second, and a third, and a fourth to arrive into this little town. Agents of chaos, we called them. This town would never be the same again. She was programmed to kill. She was told what to do, and she was listening to God. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories Podcast. Sarah Svensson is 19 and she's grown up in a small community somewhere else in Sweden. But in 1998 she will move to Knutby. Now when she gets there, she immediately joins the local church and she begins to get to know all the people who live in the town. She's a really bright, young, energetic girl. She's blonde, she's attractive, and here she is, she's found herself in Knutby. She's so friendly, she's so lovely, and she fits right into the congregation of the church straight away. Who do you think might have eyes upon her straight away? Well, Fosmo. He immediately zeroes in on her. He gets to know her very quickly. He befriends her and he offers her a job straight away. He says, "Would you like to become my babysitter?" He explains that him and his wife Alexandra, they've got 3 kids. The 3 kids are from his previous wife Helen, who's dead. But you know, it's a lot of pressure for them in the house. And so, would she like to be their babysitter? So Sarah Svensson, she agrees to this. She's really flattered. I mean really flattered that the pastor of the church, one of the pastors, would ask her to do this. And I mean, of course, he's thinking, bloody brilliant. I'm a sex pest. So for me, this is marvellous. I get this hot blonde in my house every day. So, Sarah settles in as the babysitter. And how it kind of works is she's there during the days and then she leaves when either Fosmo or Alexandra come home. Now, she's only been in this job of babysitting a few months when Fosmo will suddenly come down with an illness. And people are like, oh God, Fosmo is ill. What's wrong? He's gone to bed. He can't seem to get out of bed. What's wrong with him? And he describes it as this. He is having a battle with the devil. Okay. I don't think you can go to your local doctor with that. I'm pretty sure that if you turned up to your local doctor and was like, oh God, do you know what it is? I'll tell you what it is, right, doctor? It's a battle with the devil. I don't think the doctor is going to be able to be like, do you know what, I'm just going to write you a wee prescription here. I don't think so. So this battle with the devil, it's making him sick, it's giving him headaches, and much like a sickly Victorian woman, he has to take to bed. He's got headaches. Oh, it's a mess. So, Sarah is in the home and she's, babysitting the kids. He's in bed, ill. Alexandra, Fosmo's wife, she's out at work. And Fosmo starts to say to Sarah, the only thing that can cure me is you. You are the medicine that I need. Right? Sarah's like, okay, well, what does that mean? And Fosmo invites her into the bedroom. They have sex. And Fosmo says, yes, I knew it. I knew you were the medication that I needed. So the medicine that he needs in the battle against the devil is sex. Let's just pause and think about how fucking ridiculous that actually is. Yes, I'm so ill. I'm so very, very ill. But I'll tell you what's going to fix it is a little bit of sex. Now you, like me, please tell me you're thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Which is, Sarah must have been like, right, I see your game. I see what's going on here, and I'm not falling for it. But no, she does. It's not too long into his illness that she is having sex with Fosmo 3 to 4 times a day while Alexandra is at work. Oh man, come on. This is what he was doing, right? He was going, oh, I'm so shaky. I feel so ill. Oh, the devil is within me. And as soon as Sarah arrives in the room and they start having sex, he miraculously gets better. And then, a few hours later, oh, the shakiness begins again. Oh, I'm feeling awful. I'm feeling terrible. But here is Sarah, and she's going to sort that out with the medicine. So, apart from that being just utterly ridiculous, he is going to take it up a level. Fosmo decides he needs Sarah in his life 24 hours a day. What? What the fuck? He's got a wife, he's got 3 kids, and he needs the sex nanny to live in his home. Are you having a laugh? Now, if we've learned one thing about Fosmo, it's this. He gets his way. He gets what he wants. And it's not long before his wife Alexandra agrees and Sarah moves all of her belongings into their home. It's unbelievable. I just think, what? Sarah says, I'm by his side 24 hours a day. Now, first of all, what he does is he moves Sarah into their guest house. So they've got a little, guest house attached to the back of their house. And, Alexandra, his wife, she's not happy about this at all. She's not happy. But also remember, she is married to the pastor who preaches a woman should obey the man. A woman has to do what the man wants. So she can be as unhappy as she likes in the situation. It's not going to change. So Sarah is in the guest house, which is attached to the main house. But Fosmo decides, nah, he wants to take this one step further. He wants Sarah in his bed. He wants her that close 24 hours a day. And so here's what happens. Alexandra moves into the guest house at the back of the house, and Sarah moves in to the marital bedroom. What? What the fucking hell, what? I'd be livid. If I was in that situation, if I was Alexandra, I mean, I would be more than livid. I would commit a murder. I would actually just stab somebody through the heart. Anyway, this is the situation. So Sarah's now in the bed with Fosmo. She's there 24 hours a day. She's giving him sex as much as he needs it. And his wife is in the guest house. News of this arrangement, it spreads really quickly through Knutby. And there's a lot of shock. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of what the hell's going on. And although I suppose it's difficult because Fosmo was known for his lengthy sermons on the importance of sex for a man and how a woman must obey. But it's still a shocker to people that his babysitter is in his bed and his wife is in the guest house. This really, I mean, it really bothers me. It really bothers me. I'm just going to talk about, just for a second, just about, I suppose, the kind of problem I have with that. And it's to do with how Sarah comes out of this situation. She's going to go through a horrendous time in which she's painted as a massive, massive villain in the situation because she is a devil woman. She's a whore. She's all of these things because she has decided to go to bed with the pastor and be his 24-hour a day woman. And I really hate it. I really, really hate it. She ends up excluded from the church. She's no longer invited to any houses of friends. She starts to get called the devil's woman. This is what it's like in Knutby. She becomes this absolute, person of hatred. Another one of her nicknames is the devil's tool. The devil's tool just sounds like a really hardcore vibrator. Doesn't it? Doesn't it sound like you were to literally be browsing vibrators? Ooh, there's the devil's tool. That sounds good. But in all seriousness, what I really fucking hate about it is this. I hate that it's this idea again of the woman is the person to blame. The woman's the person who's the problem here. She's not the problem. She isn't the problem. She's, yes, okay, there's complications, there's difficulty, but come on. You've got to look at him and go, you're the actual big dickhead here. You're the one that's causing all the problems. I was reading something last week about Marsha Clark. Remember Marsha Clark? She was the lawyer who was trying to get OJ put into prison. Now, Marsha, she is some woman. Oh my God, she is some incredible female. I have such respect for that woman. Now, I can't remember the exact quote. Oh, God, I wish I could remember it. I can't remember exactly what her words were. And if anyone out there, if you can find it, please find this quote. The essence of it is basically this. She talks about how, in this one statement that she says so beautifully, women only get one chance to fuck up. And then that's it. It's gone. Men can screw things up over and over and over, but if you're a woman, you only get one opportunity to mess it up. And when you do, it's held against you forever. And that's not ever going to change. Women, I'm remembering it slightly, she says something like, women will never recover from the mistakes that they make. It's something along those lines. Now, there's grey areas in there, and I don't want to just put all my faith into one statement, but there is something in that. I mean, I'm also very, very pro, can we not hate on men so much? I hate a lot of the hatred that happens for men. We're not all bad guys. We're not all misogynists. And I mean, I could go off on this forever, but the whole idea of what is a man, who is a man, what should a man be, what should we understand that construct of men to be is a whole problem I have such an issue with. I spend so much of my time thinking about it. Why are male suicide rates higher than they have ever been now? Why is that? Well, I think it's to do with what we put expectations on men to be, but we're also doing the same to women, and it's yeah. Okay, sorry. I've slightly lost the way there. Sorry, I've slightly lost the way from the story. I've become a political podcast. I've become a political, hard-hitting podcast. I'm practically the New Yorker daily political podcast. Yeah, just humans, eh? Why can't we just help fuck each other up? Why are we doing it? Okay, so back to Sarah and Fosmo. She's shunned by the community, hated. Now, who do you think might be hating on her the most? Yes, it's the Bride of Christ. The Bride of Christ is seeing that her younger sister is living in the guest house, and she sees Sarah as the devil. And she will openly say this. She will openly, in her sermons, in Knutby, in the church, say, Sarah Svensson is the devil. Fosmo tries to defend Sarah by saying, she has been sent by God as my shield against evil. Well, I mean, that's convenient for you. That's convenient for you, Fosmo mate, because your shield against the devil happens to come in the form of a blowjob every 20 minutes, apparently. So, don't give me it. Sarah will end up pretty much a prisoner in the Fosmo house. As his battle with the devil continues, she's not allowed to leave the house. She describes it as an absolute time of hell, and it's misery, and it's being treated like a slave. The other bit of that is that there is a bit of love between them. There is love. You know, there's something between them, and actually, the thing that's between them is he's in control of her, and she's in love with the idea of him. It's very, very messy. It's basically abuse. We're in an abusive situation. He would break her down all the time by telling her terrible things about herself. She's awful. She's this terrible person. She's been shunned by the community. He's the only person who's going to save her. You know, he's constantly playing with her emotions. She will say, I was a slave to the pastor, and that was all I was. This is where, I'm warning you now, my friends, the story is going to take a very, very dark turn. Now, you'd be thinking, as I was, that Fosmo must be in a situation where, you know, he's pretty much getting all of the sex that he wants all the time. But, you know, it's not enough for him. He wants more. And so here's what he does. He starts another affair. For fuck's sake. How is he doing this? How has he got the energy or the stamina? I'm telling you, this guy has got a secret bottle of Viagra somewhere. I'm convinced of it. Because there's not a chance he is able. I mean, I know he's like in his like late 20s, but come on, he can't be having this amount of sex without a bit of Viagra. He's got to be. So, who is he having an affair with? Well, he's having an affair with his next door neighbour. Next door, there is a husband and wife called David and Annette Lind. And Fosmo will start texting Annette and saying how beautiful she is, how much he cannot stop thinking about her. He writes, "You are so wonderful. I am longing for you so much that it hurts, both here in my heart and there." And he sends a picture of his dick. Now you would think, right, that these people might have a bit of sense and not want to fall for that, but no, they do. They really do. So Annette begins an affair with Fosmo. So it doesn't take long before Annette becomes the other woman in Fosmo's life. I mean, this guy, honestly, at the moment, right, so your wife's in the back room, she's in the guest house, you've got your nanny stroke babysitter living with you 24 hours a day, and now you've started another affair. I mean, come on. Let's just focus in on Sarah and how she is doing at this moment. Well, she isn't in a great place mentally. She's basically in love with Fosmo, but she's also his sex slave, and she's really broken by the situation. And something odd is about to happen for her. Now, she deeply believes in the Pentecostal religion. Deeply believes in it. Deeply believes that you need to have a connection in this world with Jesus. And here's what happens. She starts to receive a series of text messages. First just one, then two, then she's getting 30 messages a day. And she can't understand them. She's looking at them and she's going, I have no idea what these text messages mean. So she goes to Fosmo with them. And he says, finally, it's happened for you. You are receiving messages from God. The messages that she's receiving say things like, you have to do the work on earth and you will be worshipped for your sacrifices. What are you talking about? That sounds like one of those messages you get from, it's like, hello, I'm a Nigerian prince and I have no money, but if you send me $10,000, I will help you. Okay. But these messages keep coming. They say things like, you have work to do. You must act out of love. And you must care. You must not think of the consequences. Okay. Fosmo tells her these are coming from God. That's where you're receiving those messages. These text messages are from God. What? So what? God's up there, with an iPhone, is he? Texting Sarah in Sweden. Brilliant. God's like, do you know what? Really love this iPhone. Oh, do you know? Just wish it really upgraded to the iPhone X, because I've heard the camera is amazing. You're like, shut up. Okay. But the messages keep coming, and they're cryptic. But luckily, they're cryptic, but luckily for Sarah, she's got Phosmo. He can interpret them. And he's saying to her, God is speaking to you in these messages. He's telling you a message. And Sarah says, what is the message? Phosmo says, the message is, Alexandra, my wife, must die. You must rid the earth of her. Sarah buys and believes every word of what Phosmo has to say. What she actually believes is that God is texting her. She actually believes that she has 1,000 messages on her phone and they're from God. God, mate, get yourself WhatsApp. It's way better than bloody messaging. That's so old school. So, this is how it all shakes down. Phosmo and Sarah put together a plan to get rid of Alexandra. Because that is what God wants, after all. Early in the morning of November 8th, 2003, Sarah makes her first attempt at receiving God's grace. She gets a hammer. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, she creeps into Alexandra's bedroom in the guest house. She approaches Alexandra's bed. She raises the hammer. And this is what Sarah says. I hit once really hard, but she woke up. She was confused. She touched her bleeding head. I raised the hammer and I hit again. And then I hit another 4 times over her head. Sarah says Alexandra was bloody. She was crying, and it was a mess. Alexandra looked at Sarah holding the hammer and she screamed, "What are you doing?" Sarah dropped the hammer and she ran from the room. Sarah goes back to Phosmo and he says to her, "You've failed. You've failed God. God asked you to do this and you have let him down." So what Sarah does here is she runs away. She leaves the home. It's the first time in months she's ever been out of it, but she leaves the home. She can't cope with it. She can't deal with it. So she goes. She goes and she hides out in another town in Sweden nearby. Now, the messages, they don't stop. The messages from God. God is still texting her. And every time a message comes in, she, in her heart, believes this is God telling her what to do next. And the message says, you must return and finish the job. So she goes back to Phosmo. She goes back to the house. Now, Alexandra is there. She's battered, she's bruised from the hammer attack to the face. But she forgives Sarah. What? What the fuck? No. I'm just going to say this right now. If you or anybody ever came at me with a hammer, do not expect me to just forgive you. This is ridiculous. What the fuck is going on? Honestly, at this moment, I could throw something off the wall. I'm so bloody angry. What are you talking about? You don't just forgive someone for attacking you with a fucking hammer in the face. No, you don't. Oh my god. Okay. But that's the situation. Sarah moves back into the house. She goes back into Fosmo's bed. They're having sex 24 hours a day. And oh, here we go. There's going to be another, at least 1,000 messages from God to her phone. Go back. Finish the work. This time, get it right. There's a slight change here. The messages now include someone else that Sarah is supposed to be dealing with in her killings. And it's Daniel Lind, the neighbour. The husband of the man that Fosmo is having an affair with. Alright, so she doesn't really question this. Sarah doesn't really think about it. She doesn't stop and say, why would God want me to kill the innocent neighbour man? She doesn't really think about it. Fosmo says, hey, look, hey. It's what God wants, okay? It's what God wants. So can you just, make it work? How he interprets the whole thing for Sarah is this. He says, look, God wants you to get rid of Alexandra because she is a barrier to our love. And while she is alive, we cannot be the couple that God wants us to be. And Sarah believes this and she says, okay, but what about Daniel Lind? Why does God want me to kill him? And he says, well, look, God must have some sort of problem with Daniel Lind and want him dead. So you've just got to follow the orders. Poor Daniel Lind, let's give him a little moment. He's just a guy who is actually really brilliantly clever. He's got an amazing IT job. He's doing this incredible expert job. He's just working away doing his thing. No idea that his wife Annette is shagging the pastor next door, the big sex pest, and that actually he's somehow going to end up involved in this. It's awful. It's awful for him. So, God is essentially telling Sarah she has to carry out 2 murders if she wants to receive the grace. Sarah and Fosmo, they talk about how is she going to do it. The hammer attack, obviously, was a fail, so how is she properly going to make it work? Sarah suggests, well, she could set fire to Alexandra's room while she sleeps. But Fosmo says, well, no, my worry about that is that there would be a lot of fire damage to my home. Honestly, at this point, it's genuinely if this wasn't as true crime story gets, I swear to God, you'd think this was being made up. But fuck me, it's absolutely nuts. So they start to discuss other plans. And Sarah gets hold of something to help her carry out God's work. A gun. Fosmo tells her she has to get this right. She has to get it right for God. And they put together a plan and they execute it. On January the 10th, 2004, Sarah puts on a homemade mask, a brown stocking that she has cut eye holes into. I've got to see this mask. Literally, she puts a pair of tights over her head with eye holes cut out. Oh God. She walks towards Alexandra's bedroom, and on the way she calls Fosmo and she says, are you really sure that I will receive God's grace by killing Alexandra and Daniel? And he says, yes, you will. So she walks into Alexandra's bedroom. She has a gun. and she remembers that the light in the room is very bright. Alexandra has fallen asleep with the light on. She walks towards Alexandra in bed. She raises the gun and she fires a shot at the sleeping Alexandra. Alexandra wakes up and she says no. And so Sarah gets closer and shoots her in the head. She says, I shot her straight in the head and then I left that room. And as I left, I realised it was just filled with death. But then, outside the room, Sarah gets another thought in her head. She thinks, I got it wrong before with the hammer, so I better go back. And that's what she does. She goes back, and what she does is she shoots the already dead Alexandra one more time, just to be sure that she's dead. After this, she leaves. She goes towards the neighbour's house, the Lynn's house. She gets there and she knocks on the patio door, hoping and praying that Daniel Lind is going to open the door, and he does. And as soon as he does, she lifts her gun and she shoots him straight in the face. 3 shots. Now, Sarah isn't terribly amazing with a gun, and the shots hit him in the mouth, and so he falls down from the bullets entering his body, but he's alive. She then completely panics. She runs away from the scene, and the gun she throws into a river nearby. And she waits and she waits and she thinks, I'm going to get the text message from God now that tells me I've done what I was meant to do. So she's texting Fosmo furiously, saying, I've done it. When is God's grace going to kick in for what I've done? She's in absolute shock at what's actually happened, although she's made it happen. And he says, just wait, God's grace is coming. So she hides out in a small Swedish town for 2 days, waiting for God's grace via text message. Does it come? No, it doesn't. Fosmo has to call police and report that his wife has been shot in her bed. Next door, Annette Lind is doing the same. She's having to phone police and say that her husband has been shot. He's alive, but he's been shot. So it all kicks off. I mean, can you imagine? Like, the pastor's wife is dead, the neighbour has been shot, and Sarah Svensson, the babysitter, is nowhere to be seen. Media will descend on this town like crazy, like absolute batshit crazy. The Knutby murders and the pastor and the babysitter, it becomes this huge news story in Swedish news. Police arrive and they really quickly try to unravel the madness. But here is the thing, right? Here is the thing. You've just heard me explain to you the batshit craziness of all of this. Can you imagine being a fucking Swedish police officer at this moment? You must be like, what the fuck is actually happening? What's going on here? So for a couple of days, there's looking over the bodies, the crime scenes, They're trying to understand what has happened. And this is the next big thing that's going to happen. Sarah Svensson walks into a Swedish police station and she hands herself in. She says, I did it. I shot Alexandra dead and I tried to kill Daniel Lind. Now, this is a media frenzy. This is a palaver. It's ridiculous. It's such a shocker. Knutby, the town, is ripped apart, and the church becomes this place where people want to really just rip apart and get to the real story of what is going on here. And can you imagine, can you imagine, in amongst all of this, what happens when the press hear that the bride of Christ is one of the pastors in this church? Well, for fuck's sake, this is just going to send it even more crazy. This is just going to make it even bigger. The bride of Christ's face, Asa, she starts appearing all over the news. As does the town, as does the church. So, in a police station, Sarah is trying to defend herself by saying, I received this message, this thing I had to do from God. And it came in the form of 2,000 text messages on my phone telling me to do it. And police say, right, well, can we see the phone? Show us the phone. But the messages are wiped. The messages are gone. But through police magic, whatever it is that police can do, they are able to retrieve the 2,000 messages. She talks about Fosmo and his role in all of this. And of course, he is brought in. And as soon as he's brought in, he says, well, I know nothing about any of this. I don't understand why I'm being questioned. What is this? This is ridiculous. When they do a search of his home, they find a phone in which he has hidden it in a drawer. But there are, on that phone, the 2,000 messages from God that were sent to Sarah. They are both arrested for murder and they wait to go to court. Now, as that's happening, there's also a huge investigation going on into the church. Its practices, just generally what the fuck is going on in this church. And that continues for a long time as the trial of Sarah and Fosmo approach. In a courtroom, Sarah explains the whole story. She talks about Fosmo's involvement, her part to play. But when it all shakes down, she's still on trial for murder. She still was the person who had the gun in her hand, and so she's found guilty of murder. Fosmo in court, he tries to wriggle his way out of it, but ultimately he's found guilty. Fosmo is charged with inciting murder and he's sentenced to life in prison. What gets a lot of attention is this. Sarah Svensson is found guilty of murder, but she's not sent to prison. Instead, she's sent to a psychiatric ward. And that's what people find very, very tricky. I get that. I think it's, it's very tricky. Yes, she ultimately took a gun and killed someone, attempted to kill another, and she's sent to a psychiatric ward and not prison. So that's causes masses of headlines and controversy. In 2011, only, that would be, let me work it out, 7 years after the murders, Sarah is released from psychiatric hospital and now lives her life in Sweden. No, not in Knutby. She doesn't live in Knutby, but she lives in Sweden. And the fact that she is free and she's walking about, that bothers a lot of people. A lot of people have issues with this. And I get that. Fosmo is still in prison. The reason that I said this earlier on, this story is a good few years old now, but the reason that it was brought massively back into the spotlight is that in 2017, new allegations were brought about by members of the Knutby Church. And they were brought about against the Bride of Christ. Sexual harassment stories began to emerge. The Bride of Christ and other pastors in the church were accused of really inappropriate behaviour and violence. There were people who were part of that congregation coming forward and saying, we were forced to have sex on camera, which the Bride of Christ filmed and said, I've now got this evidence of you having sex on camera. Okay. One member of the congregation accuses the Bride of Christ of biting her in the face during an argument. For fuck's sake. What is this woman? So it's rumbling on. Yes, Fosmo might be in prison. And yes, Sarah Svensson might be out living elsewhere in Sweden. But the town of Knutby is still living with this hell. Fosmo, it looks like he's never going to get out of prison. And so Knutby will remain a massive focus in Sweden. And that is not about to change anytime soon, as these allegations continue. And so ends the story. Alright then, well, I hope you enjoyed that. It's bonkers. It's devastating. It's horrible. It's fucked up. Yeah, it's everything that makes an extraordinary story. Alright then, if you want to get in touch with me, you can. Join the Facebook group. Say hello. It's a fan-fucking-tastic place to be. It's amazing. What a community. It's just beautiful. Alright, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Patreon, if you would also like to support the podcast in any way you can. Find me there. Basically, I'm about everywhere, so come say hi. Alright, this has been a long episode, so I'm not going to say an awful lot now, because you must be really sick of my voice. Until we speak again, okay? Goodbye.
I would imagine from the look on his face. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.